All right, our speaker today is someone who we rely on to give insight from their own lives to shine a light on what we also can learn. So Kevin, go ahead.
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
Nice to be back with you. It was at first I was disappointed when I got the news that this was going to be a Zoom only because of course I just want to be able to be with everybody again and have community as real live people together kind of thing. And then I thought, it really is wonderful that in times of more distress, we can fall back and be able to use this Zoom vehicle and still be together and still share some fellowship and do the things that we're able to do. So I'm very grateful for that. It's good to be back with you again here this morning. In that second song, when the curtain parted back and the keyboardist was there, I flashed to pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. I am the great and powerful Oz. But Oz in a mask. So, oh, the stuff that sticks with us. So we're going to talk today and hopefully start to take a glance behind the veil, kind of the curtain of our own, where there's something behind that saying, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. So here's the first quote for you for today. We are pieces of God submerged in matter. I'm going to say that again. We are pieces of God submerged in matter. And that's from Richard Rudd, who wrote Gene Keys. And now from Rumi. Rumi tells us the ego is a veil between humans and God. The ego is a veil between humans and God. So note those and remember that. And then final quote to start here is from my friend Hafez. This is the fun one. He says, "You are the sun in drag. You are God hiding from yourself. Remove all the mine. That is the veil. Why ever worry about anything? Listen to what your friend Hafez knows for certain. The appearance of this world is but a Magi's brilliant trick, though its affairs are nothing into nothing. You are a divine elephant with amnesia, trying to live in an anthole. Sweetheart, oh sweetheart, you are God in drag." Absolutely amazing, especially when you consider that came from the 14th century. This veil that Hafez and Rumi speak of is trying to convince us that the only things that are real are the things that we can see and touch, and that there's nothing beyond that. And yet we transmigrate this veil between life and death over and over again, over many lifetimes, many ages, many eons. Each time we end up with this ego that's only concerned about this particular lifetime, this particular incarnation, because that's all the ego knows. And it is the job of the ego, of course, to take care of us while we're in form in this lifetime. But that blindness to anything beyond is quite profound in my experience and the experience of many, many others. You hear of some traditions talk about things like, well, the first thing you've got to do is kill the ego. Well, good luck. But it's really more a matter of taming it and getting it out of the driver's seat all of the time. And I find that it's a bit ironic. This forgetting process that we go through when we incarnate, where we literally can't remember, at least most of the time, all of the accumulated lessons we've learned over the eons and stored at the soul level. And we take it so seriously in the material world, don't we? So seriously. Remember the stories of people hurling themselves out of windows after the stock market crash of 1929? So serious. But our souls remember, and our karma remembers. And we have the opportunity to burn away karma from the past, both for ourselves individually and for us collectively. And man, is there a lot of karma to burn. Whoa. Our karma remembers, and yet sometimes I have fantasies about people that I observe as really bad actors coming back as dung beetles. You know, have you ever done that? where they're coming back in some form where it's like, yeah, that's, you know, there's karma working its way out. That is petty, but my ego likes it. I'll own up and admit that. But you know, we all, you know, have these experiences where our ego takes offense at others and project all these kinds of things in it. Remember what Hafez said? He said that you are the sun in drag. You are God hiding from yourself. Remove all the mind. That is the veil. So when Kristen was a kid, her mom would lay claim to certain foods by taking a piece of tape and putting them over the package and writing "mine" on it. So that mine, that is the veil. And so I thought about that, and I thought, how much of the time are we stuck in mine? How much of our lives are we in that? And my instinct and my observations tell me a lot. Remember the movie Finding Nemo? Remember when Nemo, the little fish, is getting chased by all of the seagulls, and this whole flock of seagulls is after Nemo, trying to eat him, and the seagulls are all going mine, 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 and just creating chaos in the path of doing that. You know, how much of life is like that, where this whole flock is just going around going mine, 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 mine all the time. So when we are serious and we're deeply immersed in the drama, we forget about the continuity of life that we have as a divine being. Now, the converse to that is that when we remember our eternal nature, there's a sense of lightness. You know, there's a sense of being uplifted, and that everything is okay. There's less of that seriousness. Now, that's an interesting choice, isn't it? Seriousness and suffering on one hand, or lightness and joy on the other. Kind of like the punchline of a big cosmic joke, isn't it? It's like, well, what are you going to choose? There is a path out of the suffering, because suffering is caused by attachment, which is the ego's specialty. We get attached to how we are in our bodies. We get attached to where we live. We get attached to who we're in relationship with. We get attached to what our work is, or we get attached to, you know, what a financial situation is, or you name it. There's so many different kinds of attachments that go on. But to end suffering, we have to get beyond attachments, because the less attached we are, the less we suffer. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't care. Let me clear that right away. Care and empathy run deep. They're just not attached to a particular outcome, because most of the time, if not all of the time, we can't control the outcome. We can control our actions. We can control how we're holding whatever shows up, but we can't control the outcome, and we can't be attached to things showing up in a particular form. Breathe into that for just a moment. I mean, literally breathe in the care and the empathy while loosening attachment. And attachment feels like constriction. So see if you can close your eyes and breathe into anywhere that you feel constriction. And carry that breath deep into your body where you might not normally breathe. Open around any constrictions there. And one of the things I've learned about these breathing practices is that sometimes we can't breathe directly into something if it's too dense, but we can breathe around it. And we can make some space around it if we can't breathe into it directly. So take a moment and just breathe and cultivate patience in the process of doing that. Patience is the foundation of love. And cultivating patience with this process of unwinding the karma of many lifetimes would seem wise, wouldn't it? Because to expect that it's all going to happen in a moment is fictitious. So a lot of the seriousness that we need to work through is about our opinions. So we can get so identified with our opinions that sometimes new data comes in that would change those opinions, and it just bounces off. Just look at our political situation that we're in. And there's new data coming in all the time, but it becomes this echo chamber for the opinions that are already held. Talk about egos consumed in seriousness. Whoa, absolute seriousness. Two stories for you around this. One, I was contemplating this this lesson and how to discuss this here a couple, it would have been a couple Saturdays ago. And I got a call from my sister in Paso Robles. There was a fire near her house, and it looked like she might have to evacuate. She needed my help. Now, my sister lives on small acreage there in East Paso and has 6 horses, 5 dogs, 8 cats, and several dozen chickens. Evacuating that menagerie is no small matter. It's, you know, something that Noah would have had to take on. So I jumped in our larger car, the one that can haul animals and trailers and all that kind of, and I headed for Paso. And you know, nothing like a fire or some other emergency like that to pull you back into the drama of Maya, right? Now, fortunately, they had tanker planes on this and fire crews and everything else, and they got the fire put out by the time that I got there, and they were just working on the smoldering hotspots. And it didn't get close enough to my sister's home to be a problem. But I observed how much seriousness there was around that event. And the other story that I wanted to share with you, when Kristen reminded me of this, when we got married, she chose to come down the aisle without a veil. Her father brought her down the aisle and gave her away and all, and she came without a veil. But it made me think, in the traditional wedding, you know, the bride is wearing a veil. And I thought, I wonder where that came from, and my guess is it probably came back from, the period of time where there were arranged marriages, and, the bride would get, to the altar, and the father of the bride would say, surprise, here you go. and and that's kind of like what life does to us, isn't it? There's all this stuff going on behind the veil, and we get, surprise, here you go. and, and we get to deal with it. So on this side of the veil is all of the drama and the life or death and so much seriousness. And on the other side of the veil is lightness and ecstasy that we have to remember while we're immersed in the stuff of form on this side. So can we navigate both of those worlds in a good way? Can we start to thin the veil? So in Buddhism, the world of experience is said to be enveloped in 7 veils of darkness. 7 veils of darkness. And thus the Buddha is also called the one who draws aside the veils to generate light all around. The one who draws aside the veils. How about that? So bringing that kind of awareness back and forth across the veil is certainly challenging, isn't it? And burning away any accumulated karma that's come to us throughout our lives or the lives of ancestors or anything that we've inherited from the collective. It's challenging also. So we act in this world as best as we can, and we bring kindness and unconditional love as best as we're capable, all without being too attached to the outcome. Balance that one. That is a razor's edge. And it's a wonderful teaching and aspiration that takes constant practice. The ego is a veil between humans and God. Remember that one from Rumi at the beginning? So if we can be detached enough to engage in these practices, the veil starts to thin, starts to pull back bit by bit, and we start to access more awareness of the God energy on the other side that we might not have seen so well before. Now, isn't that just a whole lot better than clinging and suffering? So I'm going to go through Hafez's poem one more time to finish for us today. He says, you are the sun in drag. You are God hiding from yourself. Remove all the mind. That is the veil. Why ever worry about anything? Listen to what your friend Hafez knows for certain. The appearance of this world is a Magi's brilliant trick, though its affairs are nothing into nothing. You are divine elephant with amnesia, trying to live in an anthole. Sweetheart, oh sweetheart, you are God in drag. Thank you, bless you, namaste.